This week we're continuing our reading of Beowulf. There are a couple aspects of structure in Beowulf, and then some information about writing your thesis and outline that I'd like to talk with you about this week. Beowulf is a neat work structurally, and structure has a good deal to do with narrative. First of all, there's some disagreement among critics about the structural and thematic unity of the poem. Some people, like Tolkien, ascribe to the work a two-part structure. They see the accounts of Beowulf fighting Grendel and his mother as one episode, and the fight with the dragon as another. Others, particularly more modern scholars, see the work as a three-part structure, with the fights with Grendel, his mother, and the dragon making up the three parts. Jane Chance, in an article called The Structural Unity of Beowulf, The Problem of Grendel's Mother, describes her position that that incident is a transitional one in the poem. I'm going to read from her article. If you happen to have this edition of Beowulf, you might have it as well. She says, Grendel's mother does occupy a transitional position in the poem. As a retainer attacking Heorot, she resembles Grendel, but as an attacked ruler of her own hall, she resembles the dragon. As a monstrous mother and queen, she perverts a role that more important socially and symbolically than that of Grendel, just as the queen as peace pledge or peace weaver ultimately becomes more valuable than the retainer, but less valuable than the gold giver himself. The structural position of her episode in the poem, like woman's position as cupbearer among her members of a nation, or as a peace pledge between two nations, is similarly medial and transitional, but successfully so. Those are just some thoughts to think about the unity of the poem. Another structural pattern that some literary scholars, like John Layerly, have described is the idea of interlaced structure. When you read Beowulf, you may notice that the pattern of events is very non-linear. There are all kinds of historical references and stories and things like that flow in and out of the story at hand. Layerly has noted that this pattern is very common to Anglo-Saxon art. Here, for instance, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see this, but this is a picture of a braided buckle. You can see that the strands of rope weave back and forth through the regular pattern and disrupt the flow of it. If you can't see this on the camera, I posted another picture of it on the website under course documents. This art object could actually describe the narrative structure of Beowulf as well. We see historical accounts inserted throughout the tale that are like parallels to what's actually going on. We also see common themes like visits to halls, women as the bond of kinship, and treasure as a binding of society, but also as a cause of strife, that recur throughout various incidents in an interlaced way. A final thing to note about the structure of Beowulf is the cyclical nature of the story. Both in the beginning and in the end, we see the sorrow of a people as they watch a great king, its shield chiefs it in the beginning, mounted on a funeral pyre. In that sense, we see the story begin and end by coming round again where it started. You can imply lots of thoughts about life and society through this circular image if you think about it. Now let's move on to talk about the essay outline. This week you'll finish Beowulf, and you'll have thought and discussed it both structurally and rhetorically as narrative on the discussion board. So we're going to put some of these ideas together and have you write an essay describing Beowulf as narrative. The first thing I'm going to have you do is put together a thesis statement and an outline. Some of you might prefer not to do so and rather just dive into writing. And for some assignments, you will be able to take that approach if you prefer. But for this one, and for some other major assignments, I want to make sure you get started in the right direction. So for this assignment, I'm going to ask you to use what I'll call standard essay format. By that I mean your essay should have an introductory paragraph that ends with a thesis statement, topic sentences that relate back to the thesis, subtle transitions between paragraphs, and a concluding paragraph that begins with a restatement of your thesis and ends with a synthesis. Why would I ask you to do this? For one thing, the graders of the essay section for the AP test generally expect a format similar to this. Otherwise, though, this is accepted in academia as a standard approach to essay writing. Obviously, just having these parts in place does not by any means guarantee a good essay. But formulating your ideas in this fashion makes a really good framework for forcing you to be clear and purposeful in your writing. There are certainly many instances where you don't need it, and many of you may become such good writers as you progress through your education that you won't need to rely upon it. But I, and probably your freshman professors in college, I found, want and expect you to know and use it. If you end up being a genius at writing, you'll have much time the rest of your life to create your own forms of written works. On the course documents page, I've posted a short essay that follows these parameters to give you a reference if you need it. What should you be thinking about for this assignment is, What aspects of Beowulf make it an excellent narrative? You'll need to discuss several different aspects of it, probably 2 or 3 for an essay of this size, and you should seek to use elements that are connected. Perhaps they create a common effect, serve a common purpose, or are used in a way that complements one another. Work carefully to craft a thesis statement that briefly describes the elements you want to include and links them together. I call this a roadmap style thesis. It's not general, for instance, it's not a statement like flowers are beautiful, but it's specific, like the statement, perhaps intricacies of color, scent, and texture make flowers appealing. It gives the readers an idea of what points you're going to make in your essay. Then on to writing your outline. I'd like you to use Roman numerals to write simple topic sentences for each of your main points. Underneath each of your points, I want you to list evidence from the text that supports your assertion. If you write the quotations you find out completely, you'll be able to include them very easily as you write without having to flip back through the book multiple times. Also list the line numbers so you can go back to the passages if you need to, and because you'll need to cite them in your document so I can refer to them if I need to. You don't have to restate your thesis or write a conclusion at the end now. You can do that later when you have your thoughts together. If you go on the website under the course documents page, you'll find a document called Example Thesis and Outline. If you open it, you'll see an idea of what I'd like you to put together. What I posted here is an essay about Emily Dickinson and Emerson that I drafted in college. Your outline doesn't have to look just like this one. It can be more detailed if you want, have subpoints, etc. But it should include the gist of what's included here. I basically want to be able to see what your ideas are and make sure you're on track for crafting a good essay. Once I get your outline, I'll review it and send it back to you with comments as soon as I can, so that you'll have an idea of where to go as you write. Sounds good? Happy writing.